I know people don't get shout outs and they should.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I know we have some more people coming, but let's start our chat with the president today. Just a little background on it. We put it into where I have an opportunity to actually interview some people. And today I'm excited to have Lorenzo and Alexis with us, and also have Jessica Perry as my co-host per se, and she'll be doing the Q&A. So let me start with welcoming everybody. It's great to have you all here today. My name is Jeffrey Campos. I'm the president and CEO of the Southwest Valley Chamber. And today we're going to have some great guests. Let me start with, first of all, with the introduction of Jessica Perry. She's going to be the chair of our Public Policy Committee. Jessica is the Public Affairs Manager, West Valley Metro Division at Arizona Public Service, APS. Jessica will be co-hosting this with me. She'll interact in different parts of this later on, but she'll also be facilitating the Q&A. We receive questions prior to the event so that our speakers are aware of what we'll be asking them. So, and if we have time for some additional ones, we'll do that, but we definitely have enough questions, I think, for them if they had all answer them, these questions. So let's the introduction first. We'll start with Lorenzo Sierra, our state representative for District 19, but I also want to just introduce Alexis Glascock from Fennemore Law. She's our lobbyist for the West Valley Alliance. So let me start with Lorenzo. Lorenzo, we'll put you on first. Let me just give you a brief introduction. I recently just met Lorenzo, but Lorenzo is one of these kind of guys that seems like you've known forever. So he's just that warm and open, and I've really connected with Lorenzo right off the bat, and I'm really happy to be able to meet him. He is a member of the Arizona House of Representatives. Lorenzo is delivering on his promise of developing a diverse, educated, economically robust, and vibrant community. Lorenzo's promise to our community is to improving investment in education, creating jobs, and building a thriving community. And definitely, I've seen that's where State Representative Sierra is doing. But let's hear some of the things and ideas that he has, initiatives and successes he's had this past year. It was definitely a trying session at the Capitol. So Lorenzo, welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me today. Jessica, it is good to see you in this brand new role, and I know that you are going to knock it out of the park just like you do with everything else. It's been amazing, and I'll tell you, it is an honor to be here with Alexis. You know, when you're a legislator, you sort of determine who are the people who are going to shoot straight with you, and who are going to be honest with you, tell you what you need to know, and not give you any of the BS. And Alexis is one of those people that I count on to be that information that I need to be able to do my job best. So thank you all for having me on today. As Jeff mentioned, it was a little bit of a rough session, but you know what? I am absolutely honored to serve the Southwest Valley. You know, part of what happened this past year and a half, obviously, was the pandemic. And one of the things that I did was, and that is absolutely true, is that the Southwest Valley is Arizona's economic backbone. If you shopped for it, or if it was delivered to you, chances are it came through Legislative District 19. We single-handedly held up the Arizona economy during the very early days of the pandemic, when we were all trying to figure out, okay, how is everything going to work? It was those essential workers that showed up every day, the people that can't work from home, those people that were hands-on with the products and services that we needed to keep going. And I can never thank our West Valley workers enough for everything they did. Our moms and pops, the essential workers, our healthcare people. We did it all, and we held the economy up. And I think everyone should be really proud of that. And then moving forward, understanding how much power and leverage the Southwest Valley holds in the totality of what's going on in the state. So we did have a really rough session, 171 days, and it was very contentious at most times. But I will tell you, your LD19 team, myself, Representative Diego Espinoza, and Senator Lupe Contreras, we were in the middle of everything that was going on over at the Capitol. If you were reading about it, chances are we were engaged in that in one way, shape, or form. And we really take seriously, and we really are proud of the fact that we have been supporters of the business community, especially small business, understanding that this is how our economy thrives, is with those small companies, but also knowing that it is those big anchors that help things move along. So for example, one of the things I'm really proud of is I was a swing vote. And for those of you who are a little unfamiliar with the legislature has a Republican governor, Republican Senate, and a Republican House. So what that means is quite literally the Republicans, if they vote in lockstep, they have the votes to do anything they want to do. So there was an instance with a couple of business-related bills where the Republicans had come off of it. So, and there were a handful of Democrats that would save those bills. And for example, I was the swing vote on the R&D tax credit that led to the expansion of Intel, the finalizing of the deal with the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company, the expansion of Microsoft out here in our neck of the woods. So those are the sorts of things that I would vote for, understanding that, okay, there's only going to be, at the end of the day, there's only going to be a couple hundred people working in the Microsoft data center. But up until now, or for the foreseeable future, we're having thousands of construction workers on site there. And the companies that are going to sort of satellite around the Microsoft data center is going to really advance a whole new economy. So if you're in a service industry, insurance, you're doing hair, dog grooming, those sorts of things, those people are going to start coming out here to be near the Microsoft data centers. So that is a whole, what we call the multiplier effect, meaning we have one thing that we have put in place which multiplies into numerous economic opportunities. So in terms of that, we are just proud to be supportive of the business community. The other thing I'm really, really proud of was the House Bill 2015 that I introduced, which was to restore funding to our pre-K system. The federal government had supplied a grant for a couple of years, and we lost that money to the tune of $20 million a year and several hundred seats. That means families that can't afford to send their kids to high quality pre-K didn't have that opportunity anymore. And they were going to places like Littleton and to Avondale, to Pendergast, and we lost all those seats. But working with Representative Osborne, who has also been a fantastic champion for over here in the Southwest Valley, we were able to secure $45 million so that for the next couple of years, our families who can't afford that high quality pre-K, and that's the ability to get their kids into a good program so that when they start kindergarten, they're ready to learn. They're not behind their peers at that point. They are right on grade level and where they need to be. And we're going to start delivering those for the spring semester of 2022. So really, really proud of that. I'm looking forward to the discussion we're going to have today. As Jeff will tell you, as Alexis will tell you, I'm an open book. If you want to go a little bit behind the scenes, I'm happy to do that. I probably won't name names, but I will give you an indication of what's going on over there, how it works, that sort of thing. I'm sort of like the Penn and Teller of politics. There's no need to have this magic or to have this sausage. It's your government. You deserve to know exactly how it's working. And I am more than happy to share that with you. And I look forward to the conversation. Thank you so much for having me today, Jeff.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Appreciate your insights, and we're looking forward to some Q&A afterwards. So let's move on to Alexis Glascock with Fennemore Law. Alexis is a lobbyist for the West Valley Alliance, and that includes the Southwest Valley Chamber, Buckeye, Glendale, Wickenburg, Surprise, Regional, and Peoria. Alexis works with us on issues and things that we have to support. So Alexis is very instrumental in our focus on issues that affect our businesses here in the Southwest Valley, or West Valley, actually, total for her. Alexis has worked in both private practice and in a senior staff at the state government level. She has served both as a counsel to the president of the Arizona Senate and assistant to the general counsel of the Legislative Council. Alexis has been very instrumental in giving us guidance and direction and keeping us focused on issues that are important to our businesses. So Alexis, welcome this morning, and we're excited to hear what you have to say.
Jeff, thank you for having me today. I'm just delighted and honored to represent the West Valley Alliance. And it's very exciting to see what's happening in the West Valley, all of the things that Representative Sierra talked about. It's just incredible, the growth that's happening. You all know it, you're living it, you're seeing it. So to be part of that is really an honor and a privilege. So in terms of the legislative session, let me just, Representative Sierra talked about it a little bit, but I'll just kind of give you a brief overview of what it looked like, and then I'll leave some more detail for when we get to the Q&A. But we had a very unusual session because of COVID. We all thought we were going to go in and get out right away, similar to the year before, that it would be an abbreviated session. But with all of the federal dollars that came in, as well as the extremely difficult budget negotiations, it lasted the second longest in the state's history at 171 days. There were actually 1,774 bills introduced, which was the highest number ever by a substantial amount. 474 were signed, and 28 were vetoed, 22 of which were vetoed because there wasn't a decision on the budget and the governor was upset with that. And many of those were actually reintroduced. So that number is a little inaccurate in terms of bills that actually were sent to his desk and did eventually get passed, maybe with a new title, but they were passed. And the general effective date for the laws that were passed this year is September 29th. So unless they were retroactive or early effective dates, that's when all the new laws will go into effect. And it was a session of extreme partisanship, and that was caused in part by the very narrow margin between the House and the Senate, between Republicans and Democrats in those chambers. And in the House, there were 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats, and then in the Senate, it was 16 to 14. So everybody was extremely important. They were the most important vote on the budget, and we're very grateful to Representative Sierra for that bipartisan effort to help the business community, especially on some of the most important bills this session. So I want to thank him again for what he did for the business community. Very much appreciated. And then I will leave the discussion of some of the top bills to a little bit later in the program, but that is an overview of what this session looked like. And next year will be the second year of the term, 2 years. And we expect that will hopefully be a shorter session, but potentially with a lot of bills introduced again, which makes for long days at the Capitol as the committees work through all of those bills and they're voted on.
Great, thank you. So we have quite a few questions here. So this is where I hand it off to Jessica. Jessica will be, as I mentioned earlier, she's the chair of our Public Policy Committee. And Jessica, let's make a pitch for that. Anybody interested in participating in our public policy, please reach out to Jessica or myself. We have our first meeting September 15th. And it's at 9 a.m. in the morning. So we're excited about that. And we'll follow it up with just a legislative breakfast that we have on the calendar, but it's not public yet. We have to identify people like State Representative Sierra to make sure he's there. All right, we got one down, Jessica. So we're excited about that. And let's hear from Jessica. You want to handle the Q&A, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. And good morning, Representative Sierra. It's so good to see you, and thank you for the kind words earlier. And thank you for all of your hard work while you've been serving your district at the Capitol. So where we've crossed paths, you were as a city council member at the city of Avondale. And so we would like to hear kind of how that experience has benefited you down at the Capitol in your new role.
So I'll back up a couple of years. So in 2012, I ran for the state legislature and lost by about 100 votes. And then, picked myself up, dusted myself off, and ran for Avondale City Council. And in hindsight, losing that first race may have been the best thing that ever happened to me. And having that city council experience was absolutely key to being successful there. And what I'm finding is you have, I would say, out of everyone who serves, of the 90 people, there's probably less than 5 that have city council experience, maybe half a dozen. But that experience was absolutely critical in my development as an elected leader here in the Southwest Valley. Working on city council, you really understand when we talk about local control. What are those things that we have control of our own destiny? And whether it was how our water, how we were growing, the sorts of companies that were coming in here. In Avondale, for example, we have that I-10 corridor, and I'll tell you, we could put just about anything at any time onto that I-10 corridor, but it's a matter of being patient and waiting for those right opportunities. So now what you're seeing is we have that fast casual little area between 99th and 107th. We have medical facilities coming in. We have the neighborhoods coming in. So you really get to determine the fate of your own community. And what I saw at the legislature was that I've always been a champion for that local control, whether it's at your school district level, whether it's at your city level. We don't need some of these ideologues poking around in our cities and in our school districts with whatever philosophy they have. Our local people know what they need to do to move their respective communities forward. And that is something that I will always have with me. One of the, back a couple of years ago, Tim Kaine was running for Vice President of the United States. And I had a chance to chat with him. And at the time I was a city councilman. And so here's a guy who was a city councilman, a mayor, a governor, a congressman, and a senator, and now running for vice president. And so we're chatting, and he goes, I'm going to be honest with you. The best time I ever had in politics was when I was a city councilman. And he goes, I never had more of an impact on people's lives than when I was a city councilman. And that's absolutely true. And to this day, I still get stopped at the Fry's over on Buckeye and Avondale Boulevard, and people still think I'm the guy that does the potholes in the streets. And that's okay, because I am more than happy. I have a great relationship with Mayor Weiss, with the rest of the council, with City Manager Charles Montoya. And I go, Charles, there's a pothole over here. Can you go grab that? So it's great to have those city relationships. The other cities we have in Legislative District 19, Tolleson, we have a great relationship with everyone over there. So those are critical. And we often hear from various city leaders, well, my representative or my senator isn't responding to us. And so we end up, especially because out of all the districts in the state, I think we're the only ones with 2 former councilmen, myself and Representative Espinoza. Alexis, you probably know better than I do, I think we're the only ones that have 2 of the 3 with the city council experience. So that city council experience is absolutely critical, and I'm so glad that I had that opportunity to serve the people of Avondale that way.
Well, thank you. We are certainly glad that you had that experience and are working hard down at the Capitol. And of course, yes, Patricia DeRoss does not want to forget Representative Osborne, since she also served as city council member at the city of Goodyear. So I'll kind of jump back and forth between both of you, if you don't mind. Alexis, it's so good to see you, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to represent the West Valley Chamber Alliance. So first question, sometimes there's some negative perception that comes with the term lobbyist. So would you kind of go through what you do at the Capitol and how you actually serve to protect the businesses in the West Valley and beyond?
So thank you so much, Jessica, for that opportunity to talk about that. And I want to thank Representative Sierra also for mentioning that he feels that he can trust what I bring to him, that I will present both the positive aspects of any legislation as well as the negative, and really explain the downside so that when people are voting, they have an opportunity to really assess what's going on. I think that the most important things are relationships built on trust down at the Capitol. I've been down there since, I don't want to tell you how many decades, but well, it's many decades. And a lot of the people down there are still there, and a lot of the staff are still there. So it's really, and when I say, for example, the Speaker of the House, been down there since I was down there. So initially. So let me talk a little bit about being a lobbyist and the negative perceptions. There's always going to be a bad apple in any group. And sadly, as in any industry, those people are the ones that everybody hears about, and that's what they focus on, and that's their impression. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. Everybody down there, I would say, is very professional for the most part, extremely professional, and as well as collegiate. Once a bill is done, we all get together. We may have been at crosshairs on the bill, but then we come back together to work on another one where maybe our interests are aligned. So let me just back up for a minute and just say that lobbying is part of the political process. When the founding fathers intended that, although they didn't call them lobbyists, that came decades or years and years later, when the lobbyists used to sit in the hotel where the president was coming, and they would, and that's how the term came up, because they were waiting for the president to talk to him after dinner. But in terms of the founding fathers, Madison really designed this, a little bit of history, but designed the process and talks about in the Federalist Papers to create a situation where people advocate for their interest. And although it slows down the process, it requires negotiation and compromise. And the idea is that at the end, maybe everybody's interests aren't exactly what they went in to get, but at the end, everybody's voices are heard, and that resulting legislation hopefully addresses all of the concerns. And part of that is finding the unintended consequences. In terms of the process and how it tries to prevent unintended consequences, as a bill, this is, reminding you of your civics, that as a bill is introduced, when it's introduced, before that, actually, there are oftentimes stakeholder meetings when a legislator is developing a bill. And so that may happen during the interim before the session begins again in January. And that's an opportunity for the legislator and for the other stakeholders to hear what the various tensions are on the bill and try to find a way to resolve them. And then a bill is introduced, and it's heard by at least two committees, the subject matter and the rules committee. And during the subject matter hearings, people are testifying. So it's an opportunity for legislators to hear both sides, if that hasn't happened fully in the stakeholder process. And then oftentimes that bill may be amended because now new information's come forward, addressing potential unintended consequences. And then after that, once it's potentially amended, then it goes to the floor for 2 votes once it's through the committees. And again, it's a vetting of those issues. So in that way, the business community's interests are protected. And oftentimes on any bill, there will be coalitions that are built to try and really advance the business community's interests. And so that's a very effective part of the process as well. But again, as Madison intended, it's very slow and time consuming. And sometimes the public doesn't understand why it's taking so long to get things done when that process is taking shape.
Thank you. And we're lucky to have a straight shooter, as Representative Sierra said earlier today, representing the West Valley Chamber Alliance. So Representative Sierra, you kind of talked about the many challenges that you faced last session and some of the highlights. Any other challenges and highlights like for the Southwest Valley Chamber members to hear about?
Sure. And I would say I started the session with some very personal challenges that I had. And for those of you, I usually mention this up front, but many of you may not have seen me either in person or here on a camera or anything. Most of you know that I had a serious bout with COVID. Back October, we went to go visit my daughter, and next thing I know, I'm at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore on a ventilator with about a 33% chance of living. But we got through that. But what it did was it made me really, my body was extremely weak when we started the session. I was walking with a cane. I couldn't make it through an entire day without having to go and fall asleep somewhere. So that was the challenging part. But I think when you talk about sort of the politics of it, and again, I will just give Alexis some kudos, because part of it is people like Alexis are always there in person, and it will literally be, I come out of the chamber, and Ms. Glascock will be there. Ms. Sierra, can I get 2 minutes? And literally, we will determine the fate of a bill between the door and the bottom of the stairs. And that's where it's like, okay, here, and that's how quick we have, because then I've got a series of 15-minute meetings, anywhere from 4 to 10 back to back 15-minute meetings on all these bills that have that. But I do appreciate that Alexis will always talk about what the angle is for the West Valley Coalition. So there's always that. So what are you guys thinking? Because that always comes into my mind is, Alexis, where are the West Valley chambers on this one? And that's something that we need our lobbyists for, because I can't get on the phone with Jeff or with Glendale, and I don't have the time to call everyone individually. So Alexis will say, this is where everyone's at. So that's why that role is so important. But the challenge I feel that really derailed the session near the end is that you had some freshman Republican legislators who are very far on the ideological end. And to heck with the repercussions of whatever it is they're trying to do, they're going to get that done. So they held the budget hostage, in a sense, and able to get what they wanted. And that was to the detriment of some of the things that Representative Espinoza and I and Senator Contreras had worked into the budget. Well, they stripped all of those things out of the budget, one of which was a funding for the slip ramp over on the 101 and the 10. A critical infrastructure piece for Tolleson, Phoenix, and Avondale in that area. And because it was a Democratic sponsored bill, it was stripped, not because it wasn't a great project. It is a great project, but just because of who we were. And that had really never happened, because we had always maintained really good relationships with everyone. And that's really what all of this comes down to. Do you have the trust of people? Do you have credibility? And do you have those relationships that are going to allow you to do the things that you need to do for your community? And at the end, that all got set aside so that these freshman ideologues would have their way with the budget, and then their way with all the policy that was happening. And I don't see that getting any better in the next session. And I think it's going to make it just infinitely more difficult to get things done here in the next year. But it doesn't mean we're not going to try like heck. It doesn't mean we're not going to fight like heck, because we absolutely are, because this community deserves the best that we've got to give. And so I would love to hear Alexis' thoughts on that as to how a small number of inexperienced ideologues really took over the session. But again, we will work hard as we can for all of you and for the communities that we love.
And we certainly appreciate all of your hard work and continued work to benefit your district in the West Valley. Alexis, I think he posed a question to you, if you would like to kind of answer that.
Representative, I think that the tension, which I alluded to a little earlier, is because of the split. And every single member literally became the most important member on whether it was bills. I mean, there's a critical infrastructure bill that you're talking about that makes so much sense for one of the strongest economies, growing economies in the Valley. And it makes no sense. So I think part of it is, there was a lot of difficulty because of COVID. We come back into the second session and there's just so many bills. And I feel that hopefully this session, there will be more ability to control the caucuses and to prevent those extremists from sort of making those, decisions by pulling off. I mean, that's the problem, is they could hold their caucus, in a situation where if they didn't let them have their way, they wouldn't vote on the budget. And I think a lot of that went on, and it was very, very difficult.
Right. And well, the thing about that was there is a group of Democrats who would be reasonable and that would work with that, and that would give a budget that was probably more holistic looking and probably more, and we're not talking about a left-leaning budget. We're talking about a pro-business, pro-community, pro-education budget that would have helped a lot of people. But so it was, okay, here's the fork in the road. We can either work with a small handful of Democrats to get something good across the line, or we can acquiesce to the farthest right elements. And I can tell you, they didn't choose the road I was on. And I'll tell you, it is absolutely difficult to be in a position like where Rep. Espinoza, Senator Contreras, and I are in, where we're willing to go outside the comfort zone for the good of the state and for the good of our constituents here in the Southwest Valley. And it's often a really lonely place to live, and it's a really hard place to live because you're taking criticism from everywhere. It's one thing if you're just getting criticized from one side, but to be taking it from every level. And that's fine with us. We understand that that's the nature of who we are and what we're trying to do and the community we serve. And we make no apologies for serving our community. But I think there needs to be some introspection on the Republican side to say, okay, why did, we had a couple of options and we went with the one that was so divisive that is just really, right now, it's part of all of these things that are going on in our community with the COVID experience, with the economy. That's why we've got all of these, we're going to have so many propositions on the 2022 ballot. It's going to be just this mass of things, because by and large, these were things that were wholly unpopular with the general populace. They were great if you're of a certain ideology, but for just the general population, a lot of things that came through were just wildly unpopular, and that's why you're going to see so many propositions on the ballot this coming election cycle.
Definitely. And certainly major challenges you guys are both dealing with down at the Capitol. And Representative Sierra, we're so glad that you are able to continue serving your district after your health scare with COVID last year. I was keeping an eye on you and from social media and keeping you in my thoughts and prayers as you were dealing with that. So I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you very much. And I couldn't have done that without my wife giving everyone the updates that she was giving. And obviously I was in a coma and didn't get to see it, but she could not have done a better job of just keeping everyone updated and what was going on with me. And so I can't thank her enough.
Yes, and please thank her for all of us as well. So that was a lot about last year. How about, let's talk about this upcoming session. Representative Sierra, what are some of your priorities for this next session? I know it'll continue to be challenging, but just go ahead and talk about your priorities.
So the greatest priority, so if you don't know, my wife is Rhonda Cagle. I think many of you know her. She is an education consultant, nonprofit consultant that works with a lot of clients and helping them move their world forward. She's also a writer for the Arizona Republic. And one of the things that she's doing is a series on how poverty affects our K-12 achievement. And outside of everything else, what I've always said is that even as a Democrat, I understand that if one day we threw every extra dollar into education and we were able to become, somewhere in the middle of the pack in terms of education funding, the stark reality is that the poor kid is still poor, the hungry kid is still hungry. The kid whose parents are either in jail or on drugs, that situation still exists for that child. And it is poverty is so much of the root cause of why we don't have some of the educational attainment that we need to create the workforce that we're going to need moving forward. We have put a strong economic foundation here. Companies want to be here. Businesses want to grow here. Our local entrepreneurs are growing their company. They need that high quality workforce that's going to get them to where they need to meet their business goals. And as of right now, we are unable to fill a lot of those roles. And I mean, if we could see a show of hands, I'm sure that there's some entrepreneurs online right now who has jobs that they need to fill and can't fill them. And I think you're going to see that. So part of that is our K-12 system has to be robust and strong in order to make sure that that workforce is there. And until we address poverty, we're not going to do that. So right now, my wife is doing a series on poverty in education. The next one comes out August 29th. I would encourage everyone to read that. And I am working with various stakeholders in order to see if we can put into our K-12 funding system a poverty weight, which allows those districts that need a little bit extra to get the resources they need to get those kids back up to grade level and back to where they need to be so that they can become functioning members of our society. Now, I've had several conversations, and it is universally accepted, and even by me, that this is as a quixotic endeavor as you could have. I know I'm fighting a losing battle here, but these kids are worth it. Our economy is worth it. You as entrepreneurs out there watching this, you are worth having a good quality workforce and us doing everything on our end that we can to provide that. So that is the big thing that I'll be working on this upcoming session. And I have no, really no promises that we can do this, but this is one of those things where you look back on where I've been the past couple of months, and I'm just lucky to be alive. And I got to believe the good Lord needs me here to do some stuff, and I'm going to fight for those things for as long as I can. And this is one of those things that I believe is important to really fight for. So that's what we're going to do. We have a couple of economic cleanup things that we'll need to be doing this upcoming session. I do serve on the Ways and Means. That means we figure out the ways and means to pay for everything. So I think there's going to be some cleanups there that strongly affect the business community. There are some things that we need to do in the agriculture space as well. I serve as the ranking member on agriculture. We need to make sure that our water is there. In the totality of everything, the water is going to be such a huge issue. We have reached various levels that, or not levels up, but levels down, that we didn't think we were going to hit for many years. And here we are. And thank goodness for all this rain that we're getting now. And hopefully that helps somewhat. But we are in an extended drought that, we haven't seen in eons. So hopefully we can all come together and determine how best to address our ongoing water issues, so that when all of us here are long gone, there is still enough water for our descendants to be able to continue this thriving community.
Thank you. And Alexis, any thing that the small businesses in the West Valley should be aware of for this upcoming session?
Well, absolutely. And let me, if I could just step back a minute to mention quickly some of the things that were passed this year that actually they will want to know about if they don't already, that go into effect on September 29th. So the first thing is, and this one actually went into, is retroactive, is the COVID liability law, which protects businesses and other entities if they if they acted in good faith and followed CDC and federal and state guidelines in terms of, and also documented the procedures they were using to comply with COVID requirements to ensure that their employees or their customers were safe. And I won't go into detail on it, but it raises the standard of proof to clear and convincing evidence, and a plaintiff would have to establish that the entity acted either with gross negligence or willful misconduct, which is a very high standard. So that was a big win for the business community. Another bill that was passed is, as you know, the flat tax was passed, and related to that goes into effect. It takes it down to 2.5% over a 3-year period. Related to that, they discovered during the process that LLCs and sub S corps would be taxed at that higher level because of the way the initiative read. And so an alternative taxing structure was passed that allows, and it's important for LLCs to know this, they can elect a different tax structure, so they're not taxed at their personal income level, but rather at the entity level, LLCs and sub S corps. And then also the commercial property tax assessment, that ratio from 17 to 16%. And then talk about unemployment insurance. There were funds from the federal government that came in that were used to increase the unemployment insurance trust fund, which will actually decrease the cost that employers now pay for that fund. And then we have access to capital, angel investment, tax credit that was passed. So that helps young entrepreneurs, or I should say embryonic companies that are starting up. In terms of education, STEM funding for both Pima and Maricopa County was in the budget. And so that will be, funds will be available for a greater STEM funding, which we all know is critical. We have 68 million in additional ongoing funding to the universities, and then 65 million going to K through 12 rollover in the budget. In terms of healthcare, 7.2 billion federal funds has gone into telehealth, and in order to facilitate that, broadband, which helps both telehealth and education. So those are two other things. A broadband investment will now be available all over the state at a greater level. Turning to 2022, and I'm going quickly because I know we're pressed for time, but 2022, exactly what Representative Sierra said is 100% right. I mean, we're going to see a lot of things on the ballot, and we can expect the Prop 208, whether it's held constitutional or not by the court, still pending, but because of the flat tax, we're going to see initiatives dealing with that. Criminal justice reform that has bipartisan support. We're likely to see some legislation on that to allow people who can obtain a reduction in their sentence if they take certain classes, and will then that translate into skills that they can use when they are released. Election reform is going to be a big issue. And then we're also going to see better land use and management, fire mitigation. We're likely to see a lot of that. There's money in the infrastructure bill. Sorry, not the infrastructure bill, but the bill, the funds that are coming out now that they're working on. and that next release of funds. And I think that that's likely to be a big issue, obviously, for the western states and Arizona. Taxation, we don't know what that'll look like, but it'll be inevitably there will be more issues related to that. And then transportation, we've got MAG, and by 2025, there has to be a renewal of the half-cent tax. So what's going to happen with that? There might be legislation related to that this year. And then finally, water, which Representative Sierra talked about. Water is huge, and whether it's desalinization or other measures, that is inevitably going to be legislation will probably be introduced on that again this year. So that's a quick summary of what happened and what we can look forward to this next session.
And quite a mouthful. Thank you, Alexis. I'm glad that you were able to recap last year and what we should expect for this upcoming session. And as you mentioned, we're kind of running out of time, so I'll close it out with Representative Sierra's last question. How important is it for you to hear from your constituents? And is there anything you would like to leave with the listeners for today?
So as we speak, I am working with one of our elementary school teachers. Her class came up with a bill that they would like to introduce. We are going to help them write that. We are going to introduce it. I am going to do my best to get this passed. So it is absolutely critical. I love hearing from everybody. I love hearing, especially from our K-12 kids who just love coming over to the Capitol and learning about how it is a law gets made. So yes, like I said, I'm an open book. Everyone knows how to reach me. Many of you have reached me, whether through Facebook or a text. And it is really important that I maintain that strong connection with everyone, because it really does matter. When you do get a hold of me, please mention, if you send me an email, make sure that you mention, hey, I'm one of your constituents, or I live in the Southwest Valley, because that puts everything up to the front, because quite literally I get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. And unlike congressional folks, we don't have a big staff that helps us sort those. We have myself and Representative Alma Hernandez from Tucson. She and I share one assistant. And right now we're in between assistants. So we have 4 of us sharing one assistant. So that person tries to help me manage my inbox. But it's really important that people do get a hold of me. Never think that you're bothering me. Never thinking anything is off limits. If there's something that we're not going to agree on, I will tell you why I am doing one way, something a certain way, or why I'm operating in a certain way. But so long as we can have that respectful dialogue, I really encourage it and look forward to hearing from everybody.
Thank you. And thank you, Representative Sierra and Alexis, for joining us today. We certainly are so thankful for you guys to be sharing about last year and what's up ahead for us this upcoming session, and having both of you fighting for the West Valley and prioritizing your district and beyond. So thank you. And I'll pass it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Jessica. You did a great job. You might have another career somewhere else here. So Alexis, State Representative Sierra, thank you so much for your insights and your support of everything that you do for our businesses out in the community. We're excited to have you here and be part of our organization. We're also looking forward to your participation. I'd like to extend an invitation to be at our membership meeting. Our annual membership meeting will be at the Phoenix Raceway, September 23rd at registration 7:30, 8 o'clock, the program begins, and that's where you'll be able to hear from our mayors for the 4 cities. We'll be recognizing them at the same time. We'll also be having our city managers from the cities also speaking. And then last but not least, I will give where we're going, the directions, new things we got going. And Chris Amos, our chair, will also be talking about where we've been and also his vision of where we're going for the remainder of the year. So thank you all for participating, and you're all invited to our membership meeting. We're looking forward to seeing you all. It's going to be an exciting time. at a great venue. So thank you all for participating today and look forward to the next one. So thank you so much. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.